Hi, everyone, and welcome to this session of Her Story. Today, I find myself so privileged to sit with this amazing woman, Ego. She'll tell us a little bit more about who she is in just a few minutes, but her story is all about showcasing the women in our group, hearing their stories, their successes, their challenges, and how they overcame them, and the inspiration and motivation that they impart certainly helps us to become the best us as we journey towards our ultimate dream and goal. So, Ego, thank you for agreeing to this interview today and welcome to Her Story.
Thank you. Thank you, DeCresa. Thank you.
I had the privilege to sit and speak with you just a few weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, as you spoke to our cancer support group. And just your story coming out of that meeting has resonated with me from that point to today. I think about the journey that you've been on. I think about the challenges you've overcome, the support you've had, and truly that cancer is not a death sentence. I'm so motivated by your life. Thank you so much for that and for putting the words of your journey into a book more than my hair. I just love it. So Ego, tell us, who are you?
Okay, I'm first a wife, a mother, sister, friend. I'm a mentor. And lastly, I'm a technology strategist. As a person, I'm passionate about personal development, actually, and fostering a positive mindset. And I would say this is how I've lived most of my life. I've always been quite positive, despite or regardless of what's going on around me from a very early age. I don't know why, but I would say I've always been a positive mindset person. Like the glass is full, regardless of what it actually looks like. I always had that mindset and belief that the glass is always full and I am who I am for a reason, or things happen the way they happen for a reason. So that's really who I am.
Awesome. I love it. I agree that nothing just happens. I believe that everything happens as it should.
Absolutely.
And for the reasons that it should. And we come into what the reason is eventually. So I truly, truly believe in that. So you're a technology strategist.
Yes.
What was it that made you choose that as a career?
Okay, so I at a very early age, I would say maybe from when I was 5 through to 8, I had visions of being a nurse, and that I would say that was influenced by my mom, because my mom was a nurse, and she retired very many years ago. I mean, she's passed on. She passed away last year. However, that passion, I would say, slowly disappeared as I got older, and I didn't really pinpoint. I had no idea what I wanted to do. However, I love reading, I love maths, and I loved assembling things. So I would like take things apart. Even if it was, say, my doll, I would take the doll apart, the arms and the legs and the head, and, kind of put them all back together, and if it was my doll's clothes, I would take them apart and then stitch it all back together. So I would say, I had that flair for, like maybe building things. So I would say the math and the assembling of things must have been the reason for where I started my career. So I started my career as an accountant.
Oh, wow.
But I knew that as much as I love numbers, I love the challenge of working with numbers. But I knew that I didn't want to be a practicing accountant. So ultimately, my interest, I slowly moved towards, like the financial systems, financial systems side of accounting. So I started off as an accountant, but I quickly moved into a systems accountant. And basically what that means is I was responsible for, and I was basically the bridge between the IT teams and the finance team. So, you know, if you think about accounting systems or financial systems, data is processed, numbers are processed, and you get a report at the end. So I would be the one who would be checking to ensure that everything reconciled, and implementing those systems such that I would reverse engineer. And that's where the assembling things, I would say, came into play, because if I didn't understand, I knew enough about the numbers to run the numbers backwards, right? So you put the data in and you process it and you get your reports at the end. But I was able to kind of reverse that process to ensure that, you know, the numbers actually reconciled. So that's why I would say I chose, you know, that particular field. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like that kept your brain active and running and going. You make it sound simple, but I know it's not as simple as it sounds. So how did your career progress after that?
So I started working in 1989. So I graduated 1989, started working then as, you know, an accountant and then systems accountant. But as I kind of progressed, I realized that I was more interested in the systems side. So after a few years of being a systems accountant, I worked for a consultancy that placed consultants such as myself or accountants at client sites. And because I had a flair for systems, I immediately became the go-to person for, you know, say they're trying to implement a system, and they run the numbers through, and at the end, the reports are out of sync. I was able to identify what parts of the system didn't process the data correctly, right? So I then realized that for me, systems implementation was a thing that I loved, and that's how I got into that. So I kind of moved on from the accounting to the tech, more tech heavy, so the systems implementation, but financial systems. So that took me, I would say, maybe about 8 years or so, about 8 to 10 years. And then I love to explore. So I talked about reading. I talked about personal development. I was a very inquisitive child. So anything I didn't understand, I like to kind of read and understand it. So being in that environment and being with, say, engineers and technologists, I became exposed to their world, right? Beyond the financial systems, right? So I led a number of global efforts to develop and deploy systems all over, you know, like around like 20 something countries or so. So I had a global role, and that kind of exposed me a lot to the different areas of technology. And in so most of it was in the financial system side. And then I got into mergers and acquisitions. So with my company, if we were acquiring another company, for example, I would then I would lead the efforts to do some due diligence on that company's system, because I understood how that worked. You know, I would go in and look at their financial systems, look at how you know, viable it was. Is it something that we could continue to use? Is it something that we need to shared, or is it something that we could integrate with our existing systems and then ultimately, you know, get rid of it, right? So I did that for a number of years, and I also like a challenge. I love a challenge. So about 10 years ago, so I did all the financial stuff. About 10 years ago, I became aware, so my company was opening up operations in the emerging markets, so like the developing markets, right? The goal was to build infrastructure, so internet infrastructure, so that these countries would have, like stable internet infrastructure, stable internet. And the focus was in the education space, so that the kids in these countries would have almost like a level playing field with, say, kids in the UK, Canada, US. They had if you have access to the internet, you have access to some educational tools, through the schools, right? And it was really about hardcore infrastructure, which I knew nothing about. So it's about the team would lay cables, undersea cables, into the like base stations, landing stations, and then they connect them to like these the base stations, and then the internet service providers get involved, the regulators get involved. I saw that role and I ticked every box but the actual experience, right? Okay. And I said to the vice president of engineering at the time, I said, I'd like to meet him and talk to him about the role. I talked to him and he said to me, because of your track record and your confidence and your boldness and your enthusiasm, I think, you can do it. You don't know this area of internet infrastructure, but you only need to sit in 2 meetings and you'll be fine. So anyway, I interviewed for the job. I got the job, but the job meant me moving. I was in the US at the time. I had to move to Ghana.
Wow.
Yeah. Although it was global, the team was being built in Africa. So I had to move to Ghana, and then I was covering South America, Asia, Middle East, and Africa, but I had to be based in Ghana. So I had it was basically working with country leaders to develop their internet infrastructure.
Wow.
So working with internet service providers, regulators, telcos, like telecoms, providers and things like that. So one of the senior engineers, we had a meeting one time with one of the senior engineers. I said to him, can you just explain to me how this works in simple English, the whole infrastructure. So if we are to build internet infrastructure for a country, what would it look like and who are the players? And on the back of like a scrap piece of paper, because I'm quite visual as well, he sketched out what this looks like.
Wow.
And that was it for me. I was able to understand each piece. So I then went to, dig deeper into each component. And, 5 years later, that program that I was leading actually was the most successful program in the region. Wow. And I kind of moved on from there. Most of my work is not really product related now. It's more understanding needs and developing strategy, like either digital transformation or innovative strategy to impact, like millions and billions of people.
Wow, Ego, congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, I love it. I love that you saw an opportunity that really piqued your interest and you were willing to go for it, even though you didn't have the physical experience. You had everything else. But it just also shows you how your track record also speaks for you, and the fact that you've been doing a great job and people are willing to take a risk.
Exactly. A risk, yes.
Yes, on you. So congratulations first on getting the job, and then secondly, congratulations on being super successful in implementing it and getting internet all sorted out in that region of the world. Amazing. Mm-hmm. So as you look back at your life, what would you tell your younger self if you had the opportunity to go back 10, 15, 20 years? What would you tell your younger self?
I would say to slow down and smell the roses, you know, because I'm a driven person. And for the most of my career, my 30-year career, it's just been go, 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 go. And it has to take something serious to slow me down, which
Wow.
actually happened last year,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I would say, whilst you are pursuing that dream, you know, whilst you're pursuing that dream, also, you know, take time to appreciate what's around you. I mean, I've been fortunate and blessed in the sense that through my work and you know, my interest of, you know, in travel, I've been to very many places. I think I've probably touched like 62, 63 countries.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, through work, and then obviously a pleasure as well. But in working hard, in being diligent, it's important to slow down and appreciate what's around you, even just the simple things. So as much as I've been to, so as you know, I was born in the UK, spent most of my life in the UK. The countries that are closest to home, you know, say like Eastern Europe, I haven't been, but
Wow.
I've been to very many places, right? So appreciating, I would say to myself, my younger self, appreciate, you know, what's around you, slow down. Life isn't really that serious. Yes, you work hard, but you work smart. Be intentional about you and the things that concern you, rather than work first, then you know, work-life balance, I would say, achieve that balance.
Wow,
Yeah.
what a great lesson. And we don't get it until we're older.
I know, I know, I know, I know.
When I can
Yeah.
go back, I tell myself some of that same, you know, we see those goals, we want to get it done, we have a timeline, and
Yeah, yeah,
we're just out there, and so much of the world is to be explored, and hobbies and all of that,
exactly.
that we're
And
not
I
in.
would say go easy. I would go easy on myself
Good.
because I'm so driven. I be so hard on myself, and I would see every if every failed attempt. I don't like to use the word failure
Mhm.
because I don't see it as failure. I would say failed attempt. Every failed attempt is a learning opportunity. But when I was younger, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I didn't qualify this particular year. I didn't do my master's this year. I didn't do this by the time, you know, I set myself a goal of being of doing a doctorate by the time I'm 50. I'm over 50 now, and I'm only just in the middle of it. But life happens.
Yeah.
Life throws you things that
Yeah.
you can't control,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
don't be too hard on yourself.
I
Oh
love
my
it.
God. Yeah.
As you shared with us just now, you spoke about the fact that there was some obstacles that came up. One in particular, you said happened last year.
Mhm.
What were some of the obstacles that you faced throughout your life, and how did you overcome them?
Okay, so in terms of obstacles, when I look back, I have had quite a few. So in 1990, actually, I was diagnosed with a terminal autoimmune condition. And 5 years after, that year, I was told you can't have any children. In 92, I had my son. Thank God for that. In 95, I was told I only had 3 years to live. That was in 95. I'm still here. I'm still rocking it.
Wow.
So that was that. And then I had a lot of health challenges along the way. But none of that actually slowed me down. I actually pushed through, and it's almost like, although it was happening, I didn't really notice it. So, I mean, there'd be some times that, you know, I can't move, I'm in the hospital, whatever. But I would say the biggest ones were in June 2018, so 2 years ago, my father passed away.
Oh,
And that for me was a blow. I was very fond of my dad. I'd spent a lot of time abroad working, And I had only just decided to come back home to the UK, so I could spend more time with them. I came back in September 2017, and he died in June the following year.
Wow.
So that for me was a blow. So although I did have, like a couple of weeks off, but I was back at work and I was back at the grind, working hard, pushing myself. And then 6 months after that, my sister died. She died in her sleep in December 2018, right? So that too, that was a shock to my system, but I don't know that I knew how to process it. So those were challenges which actually didn't hit me, and I still put work first. And my HR had to say to me, you need to take time out to deal with this, right?
Wow.
So that is why I said, you need to slow down, listen to your body, and, be kind to yourself, and, have that balance. I didn't have that balance. All I knew was work, work, work. And even, like my son says to me sometimes, Mom, when you're on video, you're so formal. You're not laughing, and, everything is a meeting. I'm learning. Anyway, and then as I was still receiving bereavement counseling, and my mom died 6 months after my sister. So June of last year.
Ooh, 3 back to back.
Yeah, 3 back to back.
Oh.
So, I mean, my world was turned upside down. They were challenges that I had to deal with.
Wow.
But then I had commitment to, like, my husband, my son, my family. So that was a really difficult time for me. And then as I got back, after my mom's funeral, a few months later, 3 months after my mom died, I got diagnosed with cancer, with breast cancer.
Ooh.
So
That's a lot.
Challenge, yes. That for me was a challenge. And when I look back, I'm not grateful. I'm not grateful for cancer, and I'm not grateful for the things that I went through. However, I'm grateful for the lessons that I've learned. And then it just came to my mind now. I talked about, like taking time out for yourself, appreciating, what you have around you. I've been fortunate to have a good career, like a 30-year career. I've been fortunate to have seen the world. I have been fortunate to understand and embrace different cultures and do the things that I love. Although, I was, like a workaholic. So now that I've been hit with this, I've learned to slow down, but then I don't look back and say, oh, I wish I did this. I wish I did this. Anything that I've done, anything that I've achieved, I'm okay with it. If this is it in terms of achievements or seeing any other part of the world, I'm content with where I'm at.
And contentment is so important. I mean,
It is.
So much power in what you said just now, Ego. But it also demonstrates the strength of the woman that you are. I mean, 3 people in your immediate household, like in your immediate family, transitioned on, and that there, I mean, it takes some strength to come through that, just to have the sense of mind to go to work, like just to continue life, that takes fortitude, and that takes a lot of strength. What are some of your fondest memories of your mom, your dad, your sister, anything at all?
Too many. My dad was so funny. I mean, if just today I was saying certain things that he would say. He was stubborn, but he was just so full of love. I loved him so much. I was very fond of him. He had like I said, he was very stubborn, but his heart was full of love. My sister, Pauline, she was our youngest. She was just so full of life and full of energy. We were very similar. She also had an autoimmune condition.
Okay.
She had lupus, and she had a kidney. Kidney problems as well. She had a kidney transplant 4 years before she died. She was okay with that. So the memory I have of her, we actually went on a cruise together the year before she died, and we were very similar. She loved to read, she loved to travel, so she was a good travel companion. I remember when we were getting on the ship in Puerto Rico. She was so happy about the trip. It wasn't my first cruise, but it was hers. And she was kind of swinging and swaying, and she turned around. I called her name, she turned around and she posed, and I took a picture. And that still is just kind of in the front of my mind. So that was the first one. And then the second one, we got on, we'd settled. And then she, she kind of did the scene from the Titanic, and she was singing I just think, as much as she's no longer here, I have very fond memories of her. And then with my mom loved to dance, and my mom, I love her laughter, she was very, very endearing, at the time, sometimes it's like, this is a bit much, but, she's, she just loved to laugh. And, sometimes I would just hear her laughter, even though she's no longer here. So, I mean, as tough as it is, I'm grateful for the relationship that I had with them. Yeah. Awesome. I mean, it's tough sometimes, but
I know you're not alone. You're not alone. My mom passed 3 years ago, and trust me, there are still days that I just cry, But the thing is that, like you shared, the memories, the warm memories of them living and loving and laughing and being happy and times that you have together. Really help you in those tough moments. So as you think back over your life, Ego, are there any regrets at all?
I actually don't. I never regret anything. I said at the beginning, I believe things happen for a reason. In advising my younger self, I mentioned that I would, advise her to live. I would say that anything that I did or didn't do, looking back, I had a reason for doing it. So it may well be limited information, limited knowledge, or lack of it.
Yeah.
But I acted on what I had, and I'm grateful. Could I have been a better me, a better person? I believe that I'm exactly who God wants me, designed me to be. Yeah. I can't be any other. I can't be anything else. And I'm not comparing myself to nobody. I could look and say, maybe I could have done this to be like a neurosurgeon, for example. I'm not in competition with anybody. I'm on a personal mission, right? So I was actually walking. I went out for a walk this morning, and my pace was slower today. Intentionally, my pace was slower. And as I was looking at my shadow in front of me, I'm like, just take your time. You're not in you're in a race with yourself.
Yeah.
So this pace is actually okay.
Yeah.
Do I have any regrets? No, I'm just grateful for the lessons that I learned, whether it was painful or not. It's just one of those. I can't live in regret, because if I do, then that's kind of erring on the side of negativity, or discounting what I was supposed to learn through that experience. That's just how I interpret that.
Awesome. And as we wrap up our interview today, Ego, thank you so much for that. I mean, so many of us look back and say, boy, I wish, and have regrets. But if we look at it the way that you share, as if, everything happens for a reason, and take that reason and do something with the reason. Everything that happens is supposed to happen. So as we wrap up today, what advice would you give? Like, as Kamala in the U.S. has just demonstrated that women can break glass ceilings, right?
Yeah.
The woman out there who is pursuing a career, to the woman out there who is an aspiring business owner, what advice would you give her?
I would say, for first and foremost, be clear on your goals. Be clear on what you're trying to achieve and why. I think the why is important because when we're embarking on a journey, such as starting a business, getting into a career, re-entering or starting, there's so many things that come along the way. Challenges, difficult situations, difficult people, you name it. However, if we have our goals clear and we have our why, when things happen, we need to be able to go back to why is it? What is the why in the first place? That keeps us on track, right? Because when you have sight of that, then it's easy to it's not easy to basically say give up, right? Yeah. You know that this is why I want to do it, so I'm going to keep going. So that's one. Have your goals clear. Understand your why. I would say in everything, be intentional. Be intentional about everything that you do. So everything you do towards achieving that goal is a win, right? So if you have 10 steps to getting to your end goal, even if you manage to do only 2 today, or in 5 months, only 2, you're closer to your goal than you were when you were at step 0, right? So that persistence is key. Consistency is key. Intentionality, have that burning desire, keep it front and center. And, which kind of ties back to the why. And then celebrate small wins. Don't be too hard on yourself. Celebrate small wins. It took me a long time to get to that point where even if, you have a goal. I have a goal to review 20 articles a day for my doctorate. I only managed 10 today, but it's still better than 0, right? So learn to celebrate small wins, and then go easy on yourself. Learning, like personal development. Seek to understand, then be understood. Right? So whatever it is you're starting, say, I want to start a hairdressing business. I know nothing about it. I know what's involved. If I'm at step 1 and I'm struggling with certain components of step 1, rather than give up or move on to 2, I want to understand everything. So that's where the diligence comes in, right? The personal development, the diligence. I understand everything about that step before I move on to the next. And the race is not for the swift. You're not in competition with anybody. You're on a personal mission, right? So those would be the things that I would say. And like I said, celebrate small wins, and just be content, and express gratitude as well.
I love it. Such beautiful advice. And that's the reason why women should mentor women, right? Women who have experience should help the women behind to understand that it's not a journey. You don't need to rush, to sit in gratitude, to enjoy every day, to be diligent and consistent, to research, to put the work in, because hard work will bring success.
Of course, of course.
Thank you so very much for sitting with us today, for sharing your story, for talking with us about some of your pleasant memories, your success journey, which you overcame, and giving us this advice to go out there and get our dreams. I appreciate you, and I thank you so very much for sharing with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.